Yoriichi was the only person in Demon Slayer history who was naturally born with the Demon Slayer mark, granting him an insane level of physical and sensory abilities that no other Demon Slayer could compete with, making him the strongest swordsman to ever live. Apart from Yoriichi, there wasn't a single Demon Slayer who was naturally born with the mark. But have you ever wondered what would have happened if the main trio of Demon Slayer were all naturally born with the Demon Slayer mark? With this insane power-up, could they save the people they lost in the original timeline? Would they finally be able to save everyone, or would some tragedies remain inevitable? Let's start with Tanjiro. The moment Tanjiro was born, it would immediately become clear that something about him was different. Unlike ordinary children, Tanjiro would already be stronger than most adults even at a very young age. Not only that, but his senses, instincts, and reflexes would be beyond anything a normal human could achieve. Because of the Demon Slayer mark, Tanjiro would also possess the transparent world from birth, allowing him to see through the bodies of others almost like an X-ray. With that, everything else would play out mostly the same. Tanjiro would leave for the village to sell charcoal, and during that moment, Muzan would arrive at the Kamado household and brutally slaughter his entire family. When Tanjiro finally returns home, he finds his entire family dead, but then he hears a heartbeat. Realizing that Nezuko is still alive, Tanjiro quickly picks her up and rushes toward the nearest town in search of a doctor. That's when Giyu appears and attempts to kill Nezuko. Giyu explains that she has become a demon and says that she must be eliminated immediately. Tanjiro desperately tries to convince him that Nezuko is different, insisting that she would never eat a human, and begs Giyu to spare her. But Giyu refuses and attacks Nezuko. Forced to protect his sister, Tanjiro fights back, and because of his overwhelming strength, Tanjiro actually manages to land several powerful attacks on the water Hashira, shocking Giyu with his abilities. In fact, Giyu would genuinely struggle just to knock Tanjiro unconscious. After finally managing to do so, he witnesses something even more shocking: Nezuko protecting Tanjiro despite being a demon. Seeing Nezuko's remaining humanity, along with Tanjiro's unbelievable potential, Giyu ultimately decides to spare them both. He then knocks Nezuko unconscious as well and waits for Tanjiro to wake up. And once Tanjiro finally regains consciousness, Giyu tells him to seek training under Orokodaki before disappearing. After meeting Orokodaki, Tanjiro immediately begins his training, and the moment training starts, Orokodaki realizes that Tanjiro is far from normal. His strength, speed, and reflexes are simply too advanced for someone who has never wielded a sword before. While most demon slayers take months, or even years, to properly learn total concentration breathing, Tanjiro masters every form of water breathing within only a short period of time, shocking even Orokodaki himself. Because of his overwhelming growth, Tanjiro enters the final selection far earlier than in the original timeline, meaning he never meets Zenitsu at this point in the story. During the final selection, Tanjiro easily defeats the hand demon and even manages to save several demon slayers during the test. After passing the final selection, Tanjiro waits for Nezuko to awaken. 2 years after meeting Orokodaki, Nezuko finally wakes up, and their first mission under the Demon Slayer Corps leads them to a northwest town where young women have been mysteriously disappearing every night. There, they encounter the Swamp Demon, and Tanjiro defeats him without breaking a sweat. After that, they travel to Asakusa, where Tanjiro suddenly senses the smell of Muzan. The two soon encounter each other. Realizing who Tanjiro is, Muzan quickly creates a demon to distract him before disappearing into the crowd. During the encounter, Tanjiro also meets Tamayo and Yushiro, and when the Arrow Demon and Tamari Demon appear, Tanjiro completely overpowers both of them with ease. Afterward, Tanjiro heads toward the strange shifting mansion, and there, he finally meets Zenitsu. Now let's talk about what happened to Zenitsu. Out of the entire main trio, Zenitsu would probably experience the biggest change. Being born with the mark would drastically enhance all of Zenitsu's natural abilities from the very beginning. His speed, hearing, reflexes, and reaction time would become monstrous long before he even becomes a demon slayer. And because of that, Jigoro would immediately recognize Zenitsu as a once-in-a-generation prodigy. Unlike the original timeline, where Zenitsu could only use the first form of thunder breathing, this version of him would likely master multiple forms much earlier due to his enhanced body and senses. This also means that Jigoro would officially choose Zenitsu as his successor. Even so, Zenitsu would still remain a coward despite this massive power-up. Back in the present, Tanjiro easily defeats Kyogai, and there, he also meets Inosuke, who was also born with the Demon Slayer mark. Unlike the others, Inosuke's past wouldn't really change much at all. However, the mark would massively enhance his already insane adaptability, allowing him to react and evolve during battle at an unbelievable speed. Overall, Inosuke would simply become a stronger and far far more ruthless version of his original self. And now that the trio has finally met each other, their paths become permanently connected. The trio's next mission sends them to Mount Natagumo. The moment they arrive, all three of them can tell that they're dealing with one of the 12 Kazuki. They soon encounter the Spider Demon, and Tanjiro defeats her without breaking a sweat. Similar to the original timeline, Tanjiro and Rui eventually encounter each other and begin battling. This time, however, the situation is very different. Because of his Demon Slayer mark, Tanjiro is able to defeat Lower Moon 5 without needing Nezuko's help at all. This means that Nezuko doesn't awaken her Blood Demon art at this point in the story, and since Rui isn't much of a threat in this timeline, Tanjiro defeats him using only water breathing, meaning he also doesn't awaken sun breathing yet. While Tanjiro is fighting Rui, Zenitsu and Inosuke deal with the remaining demons. This time, however, Inosuke defeats the Father Spider Demon completely on his own without needing Gyu's assistance. By the time the Hashira finally arrive, Tanjiro and his group have already wiped out every demon on the mountain. Tanjiro is then taken to the Demon Slayer Corps headquarters. When he arrives, he finds himself tied up in front of the Hashira, who are shocked to see a Demon Slayer who single-handedly defeated a Lower Moon without sustaining any injuries. They are also curious about Tanjiro's Demon Slayer mark. From there, everything else plays out mostly the same. Sanemi attacks Nezuko, and an enraged Tanjiro fights back against the Wind Hashira. Before the situation can escalate any further, Ubuyashiki arrives and orders Sanemi to calm down. He then explains the significance of Tanjiro's birthmark, revealing that the only person known to possess the Demon Slayer mark during the Sengoku era was powerful enough to overwhelm the Demon King himself. Ubuyashiki states that Tanjiro will become one of the Demon Slayer Corps' greatest assets in the future. Using his foresight, he also confirms that Nezuko exists only to help humanity, convincing everyone to place their trust in her. With that settled, the story moves forward to the Mugen Train arc. With the trio being significantly stronger than in the original timeline, they defeat Enmu with ease and save all of the passengers. Just when they think everything is over, they sense an overwhelming presence approaching from the forest. That's when Akaza appears. Without hesitation, he launches an attack toward Tanjiro. Rengoku immediately steps in front of him and clashes with Upper Moon 3. The trio quickly joins the battle, and together they begin fighting Akaza. During the intense battle, Tanjiro finally awakens sun breathing. At that point, Akaza is completely outmatched. Before he can escape, Tanjiro cuts his entire body into pieces with a barrage of sun-breathing slashes. As a result, Akaza is defeated, meaning Rengoku survives in this timeline. The rest of the story would play out somewhat similarly, but with one major difference. The trio is now strong enough to fight on the same level as the Hashira. Take the Entertainment District arc, for example. With Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Tengen fighting together, Daki and Gyutaro would be defeated much more easily than in the original timeline. As a result, none of them would suffer any serious injuries. This also means that Tengen never loses his eye or his hand. One important thing to note is that by this point in the story, the trio's performance against the Upper Moons is already comparable to that of the Hashira themselves. Unlike the original timeline, where the Hashira carried most of the battles, this time the trio would be fighting the demons as equals, or in some cases performing even better. After the defeat of Upper Moon 6, all three of them would officially become Hashira. Tanjiro would become the Sun Hashira, Zenitsu would become the Thunder Hashira, and Inosuke would become the Beast Hashira. Meanwhile, after losing both Akaza and Gyutaro, Muzan completely loses his temper and summons the remaining Upper Moons to the Infinity Castle. After realizing that many of the Upper Moons lost because of their arrogance and tendency to fight alone, Muzan orders them to start working together and forbids them from taking on important missions by themselves ever again. But that's not the only thing worrying him. Through Gyutaro's and Akaza's memories, Muzan had already seen the three Demon Slayers with unusual marks, and that terrifies him, especially Tanjiro. Not only does Tanjiro possess a mark similar to Yoriichi's, but he also wears the same Hanafuda earrings and uses the very same breathing style. For the first time in centuries, Muzan begins to fear that history may be repeating itself. He even searches for another demon to replace Akaza's vacant position among the Upper Moon. Soon afterward, the Swordsmith Village arc begins. This time, Muzan sends Gyoko, Hantengu, and Akaza's replacement to the village. When the demon demons arrive, the battle quickly splits across the village. Just like in the original timeline, Muichiro encounters Gyoko and begins fighting him. During the battle, Muichiro awakens his Demon Slayer mark and defeats Upper Moon 5 entirely on his own. Meanwhile, Mitsuri, Nezuko, and Genya battle Upper Moon 4. During the fight, Nezuko finally awakens her blood demon art. At the same time, Tanjiro encounters Akaza's replacement. Although the demon is extremely powerful, he ultimately lacks the experience needed to defeat someone like Tanjiro. After a fierce battle, Tanjiro emerges victorious. He then rushes to assist the others against Hantengu. And with Tanjiro's help, the Demon Slayers are finally able to defeat Upper Moon 4 before sunrise. During this battle, everyone also witnesses something impossible. As the sun rises over the battlefield, Nezuko remains completely unharmed. For the first time in history, a demon has conquered the sun. After realizing that 3 of his Upper Moons had been defeated, Muzan became horrified. Desperate to secure victory, Muzan created another demon to fill the vacant position of Upper Moon 3 once again. At the same time, he began planning a direct assault on the Demon Slayer Corps. His objective was simple: capture Nezuko, because if he could absorb the demon who had conquered the sun, he would finally obtain the immunity he had sought for over 1,000 years. The Hashira training arc would play out mostly the same, except this time, the trio would be the ones teaching the others since they had all become Hashira themselves. Soon, Muzan arrives at Ubuyashiki's mansion. After Ubuyashiki sacrifices himself and blows up the estate in order to weaken the Demon King, all of the Hashira rush toward the scene to confront Muzan. At the same time, Tamayo injects Muzan with her drug. Since Tengen had already retired after fulfilling the promise he made to his wives, he wouldn't participate in the Infinity Castle battle despite being perfectly healthy. The trio also arrives at the scene, but before anyone can reach Muzan, Nakime activates her Blood Demon art, transporting every Demon Slayer into the Infinity Castle. This time, however, the Infinity Castle battle changes drastically. Because of his previous failures, Muzan had ordered the Upper Moons to fight together. The Upper Moons, with the exception of Kokushibo, would now work in teams. Kaigaku and Nakime would fight side by side, while Doma and Akaza's replacement would form another pair. Zenitsu encounters Kaigaku faster than anyone else. The two immediately begin fighting, while Nakime manipulates the Infinity Castle itself, giving Kaigaku a massive advantage. On the other hand, Shinobu and Rengoku soon come face to face with Doma and the replacement Upper Moon. The moment Shinobu sees Doma, she attacks without hesitation, while Rengoku takes on the other Upper Moon. Even for Hashira, fighting 2 Upper Moons at once is nearly impossible. As they begin to struggle, Inosuke arrives at the battlefield and immediately joins the fight against Doma. Soon after, Giyu also arrives. Together, they launch a coordinated assault against the Upper Moons. During the battle, Giyu awakens his Demon Slayer mark. With the combined strength of 2 marked Hashira, Shinobu's poison, and Rengoku's flame breathing, they eventually overcome the 2 Upper Moons. While Shinobu, Inosuke, and Rengoku defeat Doma, Giyu manages to hold his own against the replacement Upper Moon until the other Hashira arrive to help finish the battle. This also means that Shinobu wins without having to sacrifice herself, allowing her to survive. Meanwhile, Muichiro, Gyomei, Sanemi, and Genya battle Upper Moon 1. Even though Kokushibo is completely outnumbered, he fights alone for a reason. Tanjiro soon arrives at the battlefield. The moment Kokushibo sees him, he instantly recognizes the Hanafuda earrings and the breathing style that remind him of Yoriichi. After centuries of unwavering composure, Kokushibo loses focus. Tanjiro immediately takes advantage of the opening, attacking Upper Moon 1 and slicing him into pieces, finally defeating Kokushibo. Back in Zenitsu's battle, the combined power of Nakime and Kaigaku proves to be an absolute nightmare for the Demon Slayer Corps. Nakime's space-warping blood demon art combined with Kaigaku's lethal, speed-based thunder breathing makes it nearly impossible for anyone to even touch Kaigaku, let alone defeat him. Even someone like Zenitsu would have struggled without the Demon Slayer mark. However, with the power of the mark, Zenitsu unleashes the full potential of his thunder breathing and kills Kaigaku before Nakime can properly use her abilities. Realizing the danger, Nakime teleports herself far away while Zenitsu is finishing Kaigaku. Soon, Obanai and Mitsuri arrive and join Zenitsu in the search for Nakime. Obanai eventually locates her, and while he and Mitsuri distract her, Zenitsu uses his lightning-fast speed to bring Yushiro directly behind Nakime. Just like that, Yushiro successfully takes control of Nakime's vision and mind. Using Nakime's abilities, Yushiro disrupts Muzan while he is fighting the remaining Demon Slayers. Realizing that Nakime has been compromised, Muzan kills her immediately. With Nakame dead, the Infinity Castle begins to collapse. And with that, The final battle between the Demon King and the Demon Slayers begins. In the original timeline, Tanjiro was unable to fully perform the 13th form of sun breathing. The technique is a continuous looping sequence in which all 12 forms are performed seamlessly one after another. Tanjiro lacked the speed and stamina necessary to execute it the way Yoriichi once did, but this time, things are different. Because he was naturally born with the Demon Slayer mark, Tanjiro possesses the physical ability to use the 13th form at its full potential. At that exact moment, Tamayo's drug begins taking effect on Muzan. While Inosuke and Zenitsu create an opening, Tanjiro unleashes the complete 13th form of sun breathing. His blade repeatedly cuts through all 5 of Muzan's hearts and all 7 of his brains at the same time. In a final desperate attempt to survive, Muzan tries to split himself into 1,800 pieces just as he once did against Yoriichi. However, weakened by Tamayo's drug, he fails. And at long last, Muzan Kibutsuji is defeated by Tanjiro. After the battle, the Kamaboko squad and every Hashira managed to make it out alive. Well, almost every Hashira, since Gyomei awakened the Demon Slayer mark during the battle against Kokushibo, he eventually died due to the curse of the mark. And that's what I think would happen if the main trio of Demon Slayer were naturally born with the Demon Slayer mark. If you enjoyed this what if, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what alternate timeline I should cover next. You can also check out this video where I created an alternate timeline in which Yoriichi was reincarnated as Tanjiro Kamado.